Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Tonight, we are here for our first race of the second half of the season, round number 7, up here at the Martinsville Speedway up in Ridgeway, Virginia. Coming in at 0.52 miles or 0.84 kilometers in length. This is slightly on the larger end of the tracks we have been to, but it being a lot more long and narrow compared to most traditional ovals, this track's going to feel a lot smaller than it actually is to these late model stock car drivers. 11 folks currently signed up for tonight's event, which ties us for the most amount of drivers I've registered for a race this season, so it is bound to be quite an exciting one, especially with how the standings have shaken up last week at the Southern National Motorsports Park. That said, drivers already making their way on down to the starting grid, so how about we take a look down there and see how we are going to be lining things up here this evening. Starting out on the pole of this one, that's going to be the number 45 of Mr. Travis Suikup, the driver that has set the fastest lap of the race for every race he has been able to attend here this season. He's going to be starting up in position number 1. Starting his outside in the number 10, that is going to be Mr. Steven Rex, the driver out of Channahon, Illinois for Droppin' Bombs Racing. And would you believe it, starting back in position number 3, that's going to be the final member of the Droppin' Bombs Racing team, the driver out of Chesterfield, Virginia. That's going to be Tyler McRae, rounding out the podium for the Droppin' Bombs Racing team. 4th place can go back to 4-time champion Mr. Brian Sabelski in the Maconi Setup Shop number 85, the driver who took home the win last week at Southern National Motorsports Park. 5th place going back to our resident Canadian driver, that's going to be the Feeney Call number 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney. 6th place going to go back to that 78 Angry Larry entry of Mr. Derek Murphy, with one of the 2 SM Racing drivers, that's going to be Mr. Jeremy Morrow in the 74, rounding out position number 7. 8th place can go back to that 00 of Christopher Bryan that had a little bit of a rougher week last week at Southern National Motorsports Park. He's going to be rounding out P number 8 here tonight and see if he can't have things go a little bit more in his favor here this evening. Back in position number 9, that is going to be the number 77 of Brady Schreckengost, rocking a brand new paint scheme with us here this evening in that Iron City Productions number 77. Back in position number 10, that's going to be the other half of the SM Racing team. That is going to be the 15 of Garrett Streets. Finally, rounding out the field here tonight in the number 993, that is going to be Mr. John Sluter running the Gatorade 993. 100 laps, as usual, going to be the distance here this evening for these 11 late model stock car drivers. Been a couple seasons since we've been here at the Martinsville Speedway, and this time's bound to be just as fun as all the others. Green flag up in the air, and we are side by side down into turn number 1. The outside line falling back just a bit through 1 and 2, which is not surprising to see in Martinsville Speedway. Another track where we have just a bit of difficulty for the drivers on the outside line here. Travis Suikup going to be taking home the first lap of the race and starting to build up a little bit of a gap on his teammate of Mr. Tyler McRae. Droppin' Bombs Racing team currently running 1, 2, and 3, and they're all playing nice and even single file here. A little bit further back in the field, that are a little bit all shaken up, mostly single filed out now, but everyone's already trying to dog for positions. Christopher Bryan back in 8th, side by side behind him. That's Brady Schreckengost and Garrett Streets. Streets down on the low line in the SM Racing 15. Schreckengost stuck up on that high line, and definitely not the place he wants to be. He's going to lift off mid-corner. And while it looked for a second there like he was going to give up the position to Streets so he could file back down onto the preferred line, but it's looking like that's not quite the case. But regardless, not quite able to hold on to the spot there, so that's going to cycle Schreckengost back into the 10th position. Further up in the field, though, Brian Sabelski is getting some pressure from Brandon Feeney just behind him. These two drivers have been duking it out several times here this season, and still at a glance it seems like the two of them have fairly similar design philosophies when it comes to their paint schemes, but no, they are not teammates. They just happen to look a little bit similar at a glance, and these two have been throwing punches a little bit at each other recently, having some really close, really tough racing these past couple of weeks. Southern National, Langley, all some really tight and close short tracks. Of course, Sabelski did take home the win last week in that number 85. Steven Rex, who was up in third, took home second after leading the most lap of the race. And Garrett Streets, the driver all the way back in 15th right now, was the driver that rounded out the podium last week. And I'll tell you what, race fans, here at the Martinsville Speedway has only shown up 4 times on the Oval Series calendar up to this point. Benjamin Hars took home the first win here back in season number 2. Tyler McRae took home the win in season 4, who's currently running up into 2nd position, so he could be looking to try and make that the first driver here in the league to take home multiple wins at this speedway. Of course, that was all the way back in the street stock, so a little bit of a different vehicle out here on the speedway that he has under his feet right now. And of course, that was also very near 2 years ago when Tyler McRae took home the win at this speedway, so doing it again. Not quite sure if that experience is necessarily going to transfer over, but he is running up into the 2nd position right now, so it is very much possible. Of course, then back in season number 6, Benjamin Hars took home the win at this speedway. Unfortunately, Benjamin is a driver we have not seen since season 6, actually. It has been a little while since we have seen that driver out here on the speedway, but he did take home a championship here with the league and has darn near as many wins to his name as Brian Sadelsky. So a lot of history here, both in the real world and here on the iRacing.com platform here at the Martinsville Speedway, and a little bit of trouble there. Derek Murphy got a little bit loose on corner entry, ended up in the grass there. That's going to knock him back a position or 2 as Jeremy Morrow actually managed to get around him on the high side, which is not something we see very often here. Garrett Streets trying to see if he can't follow his teammate through in that 15, but Murphy has gotten things collected here, so it is not really going to work out for him quite easily. As usual, as we've seen pretty much all season this season, drivers are going to be needing to make pit stops at some point or another, unless we have a whole host of cautions, but everyone seems to be playing nice with each other right now. If we take a little bit of a zoom out camera here, everyone single file around the speedway, everyone playing nice, at least for the time being. But you never know, once we start clicking past the halfway point, drivers might start to actually throw some punches at each other, because Martinsville is a speedway that is very difficult to make passes, especially in these really narrow corners. Unless you mess up and you overdrive the corner and end up on the high line, not a whole lot you can do to get around another driver without giving them a little bit of a bump to the rear. And just like that, that's somebody gave Derek Murphy. He's going to overdrive it just a little bit and drift up, coming out of 4. That's going to nearly allow Streets to close the gap. Streets is going to try for it again. And just like that, if he gets his nose down to the left rear quarter panel of the car in front of him, he manages to make it happen. And just like that, Streets is up to the 7th position. That also makes him the most improved driver of the race so far, up 3 positions from where he qualified. That said, how about we take a lap on board one of these late model stocks, get a little bit of a view of what these drivers are dealing with down on the speedway here. Having to lift really hard through these corners. Not enough to change gears. In some of the short track cars we see here at the Martinsville Speedway, we end up seeing drivers having to change gears through the corners, especially even in our modern day NASCAR Cup cars nowadays. We even see drivers changing gears through the corners sometimes, but not the case with these late model stock cars. Pretty much the philosophy is always going to be get it up to fourth, keep it in fourth for the entire race, as Garrett Streets, that we're riding on board with here, gets the pass on his teammate of Mr. Jeremy Morrow. So Streets started all the way back in 10th position in this race. He is now leading the second pack back here, up in the 6th position. About a second and a half between Streets and our top 5 drivers, but everyone behind him is all under a blanket here. Streets, Morrow, Murphy, Bryan, Schreckengost, and John Sluter all roughly 3 to 4 tenths of a second between each other. Currently looking down at that 00, Christopher Bryan, Brady Schreckengost right behind him in that bright green Iron City Production 77. Looked like he was thinking about making a move there for just a second, but backed out of it just a bit. Still only 24 laps in this race. We still have a pretty decently long time left to go here tonight. No need to be making any too particularly daring moves right now. That said, that is Christopher Bryan down on the low line. He tries to make a move, not quite going to happen, and that's going to make Schreckengost have to go really wide there in that 77 just to make sure he didn't get into the rear of the 00. Everyone playing a little bit nicer there through turns 1 and 2, and again Christopher Bryan goes down low to the bottom. Not quite enough entry to get to the rear of Derek Murphy though. And Schreckengost is seeing what that 00 is doing. He knows that it just takes a little bit of a slip up and he will be there to capitalize on it. But for the time being, not quite enough, but you can see that 77 time to pull down low. The 00 is sending it in really hard on corner entry, and he's having to lose speed on corner exit, and that's causing Brady to have to check up just a little bit to keep from getting into the back of him. And almost a little bit of a nudge there, as again Bryan has to slow up just a little bit. Christopher Bryan making his first appearance with the league here this season. Started off back on, I believe, round 1. Yeah, so he started off with the league here back in round number 1 of the season, back at the South Boston Speedway. And he's been having some pretty decent finishes here, currently running back into the 9th position right now. 30 laps in the books, still a long way left to go here at the Martinsville Speedway. Further up in the field though, Travis Sukup started off on the front of this thing, and he has been leading every lap since then in that Dropping Bombs Racing number 45 machine. He's got some ground to make up though. He and his teammate of Tyler McRae both were unable to attend last week at the Southern National Motorsports Park, and while Tyler McRae still is comfortably in the lead of the championship with 162 points to his name, Sukup fell back a position. Brian Sabelski now holds on to position number 2 in the championship as we start to close into the final couple of races of the season. Sabelski 136 points, Sukup 113. And Garrett Streets actually moved up several positions as well. Mr. Streets now in the 4th position in the championship standings, with Nico Morelli rounding out the top 5, and Morelli unable to attend this evening. So with how close the points are, that should move Feeney up into the top 5 after tonight's event. So everyone's got a little bit of a different story to tell here. But one thing's for sure, no matter where they are in the championship standings, no matter what their point situation is looking like, they are here to try and get a win this evening. Oh, but Trevor back in the back. Christopher Bryan got a little bit pushed up to the high side there, and that's going to filter him all the way back to 10th as Brady Streckengoss manages to clear him. Next question, though, is that 77 going to be able to pull away? And it's looking like he's actually able to. He's already built up half a second gap between himself and Bryan, and John Sluter back in the back in that 993, the driver that elected not to qualify this evening. Now he is closing the distance on that 00 of Christopher Bryan without too much difficulty, so Bryan might have used up his tires just a little bit. But Sluter started back in the 11th position. He is still running back there. But the good news is, the only thing he can do is go up in that 993. Also running a new paint scheme here this evening. Running for Gatorade here tonight in that 993 machine. 38 laps in the books. Still plenty of time left to go here, but things are starting to heat up just a little bit here in the mid-pack. Brandon Feeney, Garrett Streets, Brian Sabelski, all nose to tail. Streets has been steadily gaining spot after spot here this evening in pretty much no time at all, so it's not very surprising that we're now seeing him start to battle his way up for the top 5 here tonight. But these three drivers have been all pretty much nose to tail darn near all season. And they still are here right now this evening. Sabelski and Feeney both are running where they qualified here tonight, so Streets is really the only one out of place right now. Sukup in the spot where he qualified. McRae and Rex traded positions. Oh, we have trouble out on the speedway. No caution, but it looks like Christopher Bryan's having to pull it on down to pit lane here. And we have some damage on the right front of that 00, so there might have been a mishap there. Let's see if we can't take a quick look back here and see if something happened to that 00, because it's looking out of shape here. But taking a look back, it looks like it already has that damage on it, but they make a little bit of contact as Sluter gets around him. And sure enough, Bryan decided that was that. He's going to pull it on down to pit lane. And it's already been down there for longer than a normal, regularly scheduled pit stop will be, so that might be the evening for that 00 Christopher Bryan, but we will have to keep an eye on him because he is not officially retired from tonight's race. He is still down in the car on pit lane right now. But still our closest battle on the speedway, the battle between these three drivers. The Maconi setup shop 85 of Brian Sabelski, the Feeney Call 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney, and the 15 SM Racing of Garrett Streets, one of the two drivers, part of that organization that is our title sponsor here this season. Both him and Jeremy Morrow, who is about 3 seconds back from him right now. Two of them started getting together and making some sim racing gear. Right now they are working on button boxes for folks, and they are actually offering up a button box as part of the prize to whoever takes home the championship here this season. That will have the league logo on it and be custom made just for them, so definitely going to be exciting to see how that plays out, because that's the first time here in league history that we have had a prize for the championship that is more than just bragging rights. And of course, now I'm sitting here talking about the folks at SM Racing, and Garrett Street gets up into the outside wall just a little bit. I think he would appreciate if I took the camera off of him. He might be a little bit camera shy here, race fans. Well, the closest battle on the speedway here, these three drivers by a long shot, all within 0.2 of a second of each other. The other battle on the speedway that is within a second of one another is actually the battle for the lead right now between these two DBR drivers. Tyler McRae is slowly but surely closing the gap on his teammate in that 45, and a little bit of trouble there as Steven Rex scrapes the outside wall. But it's looking like he's all good as we cross the line for the halfway point here. But it's looking at the lap times, Tyler McRae and Steven Rex are both setting faster lap times than our race leader right now, and that starts to beg the question of if we're going to see a little bit of a repeat of what we've seen earlier on in the season, where Sukup sets down some incredibly fast lap times early on in the race, but his tires just aren't able to hold on in the long run. Because it's like I said earlier on, looks like Brian Sabelski's actually going to dive it on down to pit lane here. And Sabelski does not have any damage on that late model, so Sabelski, this should be a regularly scheduled stop for this driver. That will be making him the first driver to stop here this evening that isn't for damage. But with our race leaders, Travis Sukup only has one win to his name. He got it back at the Concord Speedway. Yeah, that's right. He got the win back at Concord for round number 3. But every other race, it's gone to McRae, except for the race where McRae and Sukup both were unable to attend. And generally the story has been that Sukup qualifies on pole and sets the fastest lap time of the race. But it's generally Tyler McRae that has the tires in the longer run of the evening. 55 laps in the books, though. 45 laps left to go here. Brian Sabelski is still the only driver that has come down so far, so he is being scored a lap down right now. The only driver being scored 1 lap down as Christopher Bryan back out on the speedway in that 0-0. It doesn't look like they got a whole lot of damage actually fixed up on it, but he is back out here on the track. Currently being scored 4 laps down, so he's going to need 5 cautions to get waved back around onto the lead lap here, so that might just be the evening for Christopher Bryan, but still going to stay out here on the speedway, get the extra experience under his belt, get that extra seat time ready to go for next week's event. More drivers making the call to come down pit lane, though. There's Brandon Feeney coming on down, Derek Murphy as well in the Angry Larry number 78. What is the call going to be for these two drivers here on pit lane? It's looking like going to be maybe not tires for that 38. No, it's going to just be fuel for the 38 of Brandon Feeney. Derek Murphy, on the other hand, going to be taking right side tires here, fuel for both of them. So they'll both be good to go on fuel for the rest of this race, but definitely an interesting call by Feeney to not take tires here. How that ends up paying off for him is going to remain to be seen. But, I mean, we've seen it work out for him before. Back at, I want to say, I believe it was Langley. Feeney was one of the only drivers to not make the call to take tires, and he actually ended up finishing it on the podium for his only podium so far this season. So he could be onto something here in that 38 here tonight. We'll just have to keep an eye on him, see how that strategy ends up working out. But we've got more drivers coming on down pit lane, both the SM Racing drivers down here on pit lane, as well as the DBR number 99 of Mr. Tyler McRae. Garrett Streets is going to be the first one in his box. Streets is going to be taking 2 tires. Will he be taking 4? The answer is no. What about his teammate? Will Morrow be taking tires? Definitely 2, not 4. And Tyler McRae just now got into his box. McRae also going to be electing to take tires. So it looks like so far under our green flag pit stops, Brandon Feeney is the only driver that decided to make a fuel-only stop here. Schreckengost and Sukup now going to be coming on down pit lane. Sukup, of course, qualified on pole, so he is going to be in the first pit stall. Sukup's going to be taking tires as well. And he's only going to be taking 2. Schreckengost now down. Will Schreckengost be taking tires? Yes, he will. So Brandon Feeney is going to be the only driver committing to the bit here, unless Steven Rex throws a curveball at us. And at 77, Schreckengost is actually going to be taking 4. Schreckengost is the first driver we've seen down here on pit lane that's actually going to be taking 4 tires here this evening. So everyone on a little bit of a different tire strategy here. Steven Rex is going to be pulling down onto his box now. That's going to leave John Sluter as the last driver out on the speedway that has not made a pit stop here tonight. What is the call going to be for Steven Rex? You can hear him gassing it up down there. Sure enough, it's going to be 2 tires for Steven Rex. So just about everyone on the same strategy here, with the exception of Brandon Feeney that did not take tires at all, and Schreckengost that took 4 tires. But everyone else on the 2-tire strategy here this evening. John Sluter still being scored as our race leader, as the one driver that has not come down pit lane. 67 laps in the books. I don't think that he is going to be able to have fuel to the end. So I do think Sluter is going to have to make a stop at some point. Especially because it sounds like he is pushing. So sure enough, Sluter's going to be coming on down pit lane. Final driver to make his pit stop under this green flag cycle. What is the call going to be for that Gatorade 993? Of course, with how long the straightaway is here at Martinsville and only having 11 cars, they have to go a long way down pit lane to actually get to their stall, but he's going to pull it on down there without much difficulty. Going to be at least 2 tires on that 993. Will we see him deviate from the path and be one of our 4-tire stoppers? Yes, we will. So Sluter and Schreckengost are 2 drivers that will be taking 4 tires this evening, as he pulls it on back out to the speedway here. That will complete the green flag pit cycles, and we will see Tyler McRae up at the front of this thing here this evening. First time this evening that we have seen a new race leader. And it pretty much came down to that pit stop. And what's crazy to see is that McRae was only about 0.8 of a second faster on pit lane than his teammate Travis Sukup. That was enough of a difference to put him up at the front of this show. Now, of course, John Sluter, while he is currently being scored back in the 10th position, he will at least be taking home a bonus point here this evening for leading 1 or more laps. Every driver that has led at least 1 lap will be picking up a bonus point here, and looks like we are having a little bit of difficulty here, because that is Brandon Feeney coming back down pit lane. Now, mind you, Feeney was the driver that elected not to take tires on his first pit stop. It's looking like he might be second-guessing that decision, because I don't think he's gotten any penalties for anything. And sure enough, Feeney is going to be putting on tires. He is not happy with how that car is performing, so that is going to cycle him on back to the 10th position. And he's actually going to be putting on 4 tires, so that might cycle him all the way back to the very back, with the exception of Christopher Bryan, because he's not going to be on pit lane long enough to go 3 laps down, but definitely seems like something is not right for that 38. Yeah, he's officially been down on pit lane for way longer than he should be, and gonna be honest, race fans, something is not looking right with that left front tire right there. Just like that, that might be Feeney's night coming to an end if he can't get that late model started now, because there's only 25 laps left to go here. And battle up in the middle pack Brian Zabelski, Garrett Streets. What a big surprise. We have seen these two drivers battling it out time and time again here this evening. Brandon Feeney was part of this battle at one point before he had to come down pit lane, but whatever happened to him, he is back out on the speedway now in that 38. That was a bizarre pit stop, almost a minute and 40 seconds down on pit lane, and that cost him a whole lot. That's going to send him all the way back 4 laps down here this evening. Closest battle on the speedway, though, the battle between Mr. Sabelski and Garrett Streets here, the battle for 4th position. That driver just behind him, that 77, Brady Schreckengoss, not on the lead lap here, so he is not battling for position with these two drivers, but Schreckengoss is the first driver a lap down, so if we were to see the caution flag fly here this evening, Schreckengoss would be the driver back on the lead lap. And that would make the Schreckengoss the only driver on the lead lap with 4 new Hoosier tires here tonight. So Schreckengoss, that strategy seemed a little iffy at first, but if a yellow flag comes out here this evening, it could be the move that puts him potentially all the way into the top 5, maybe even the top 3 this evening. But trouble again. Brandon Feeney has once again made the call to come down pit lane. Something is not right under the hood of that 38. And I think Feeney might just not have a choice but to call it an evening here, because he's already being scored 4 laps down. And this stop, whatever it is he needs to have done to that late model, is going to be putting him down even further. I'm not sure if he's serving a penalty or if he's just unhappy with the car, because there aren't... Oh, nope. Okay, never mind. We got our answer to that. Feeney is calling it an evening here for the evening. He has pulled it on down into the hauler. He's going to pack it up and start getting ready for next week's event at the Thompson Speedway. That is bound to be quite a race, but for right now, still got 18 laps left to go to sort out here at Martinsville. Close battle in the speedway, the battle between Sabelski and Streets for the 4th position. But the gap is slowly but surely starting to dwindle up in the front as well. Sukup is starting to close the gap on our race leader here. And I'll tell you what, race fans, after Sukup got bumped out of the 2nd position in the championship standings, where he has been comfortably sitting since round 1 of the season, I would imagine that that 45 is more than raring to get another win to his name and bump himself back up into a position to compete for the championship. But once again, we find ourselves in a 1-2-3 for the Droppin' Bombs racing drivers. Tyler McCrae, Travis Sukup, Steven Rex. 1, 2, and 3 here this evening. Then it's a 6.5 second gap back to the rest of the field. So these 3 DBR drivers, as long as they don't get a caution here tonight, they all are going to be pretty dang comfortable with how things wrap up here this evening. There is a little bit of lap traffic up in front there. That looks like Mr. Derek Murphy up there, a little bit further up the field. Drivers are setting 20-second lap times here, so Murphy only has about 2 seconds to play with here before our race leaders catch up to him. And looking at the lap times, last time by, Derek Murphy set a 24.3. Our race leaders set a 2020 and a 2017. So Murphy is definitely losing some ground here tonight, and he might have to deal with some very fast late models coming up behind him in these next 12 laps. The gap is closed even further though. Sukup is there to Tyler McCrae's bumper, and Steven Rex has caught up just as much as well. All 3 of these drivers are in the picture for the lead of this race as we get ready to be 10 laps left to go here this evening. And sure enough, as we come through 3 and 4, big double high fives gonna go up in the air. 10 laps left to go here at the Martinsville Speedway. And there's gonna be a nudge between the DBR drivers. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Schreckengost is now a very, very happy man. Just like that, though, caution flag going to come out on the speedway, and once again, I don't think any of these late model drivers necessarily had this on their bingo cards here this evening. Let's see if we can't take a look back, get a better view of what brought out that yellow, and sure enough, you can already see disaster about to unfold here. Sukup just had a much better run into the corner here than McRae did, and just a little bit of a nudge was all it took to get that 99 around, and Steven Rex came plowing back into the back of the 45 as well, but not quite enough to get him around here. Let's see if we can't get another look back at this. If the folks in the camera booth would like to cooperate with us, that would be really nice. Let's get an onboard view with Steven Rex here, actually see what Rex saw going on into that. Not enough time for him to react, but hopefully not any engine damage on that 10 machine. Steven Rex had a very fast hot rod here this evening. So that is going to have things cycle out here. Tyler McRae is still up, or Travis Sukup's still up at the front here, so it looks like he got his position still there. Yeah, so we're all good up front for the most part. Tyler McRae unfortunately cycled back to the back of the field here, but he is still on the lead lap. He did not come down pit lane for damage or anything, which is to be expected, because it doesn't really look like he got any damage on that 99. It was just enough to upset the car and send him around, so he's going to have to work his back up to the front through everyone else in the field, but he is still in this battle one way or another. So it's going to be Travis Sukup, Steven Rex, Brian Sabelski, Garrett Streets, Jeremy Morrow, your top 5 when we go green flag racing again. Nobody's electing to come down pit lane under this caution, so everyone is confident to the best of their ability that they are going to get through this final 10-lap shootout here. Just a question of who has the tires left to make the short run work for them. And lights are out on the iRacing.com pace track, so we will be going green flag this time by. DBR going to be up in positions 1 and 2 here this evening. That's going to be Brian Zabelski, Garrett Streets, Jeremy Morrow, Derek Murphy, Tyler McRae. Your last couple of drivers on the lead lap, and it's looking like they're being told to do a single file restart here, which is not normal, but okay. Green flag back up in the air, and Travis Sukup, naturally our race leader, with a very good jump going on there. Almost 0.6 of a second already built up between himself and Rex, but Garrett Streets has some speed under the hood of that number 15. He has got the bumper right there to Sabelski. And for a second there, it looked like he was thinking about going on the high line, but he backed out of that decision pretty darn quickly. 8 laps left to go here. But he is right there, and Sabelski's going to get loose out of 4. I'm frankly shocked that Streets didn't try to move him there. Because after all, this is for all the marbles. We only got 8 laps left to negotiate this thing. And if you don't make moves right now when you get the opportunity to, that might just seal your fate. These two drivers are the closest drivers on the speedway here on this restart. Sukup not quite pulling away from Steven Rex. A little bit of a nudge there between Streets and Sabelski. Steven Rex, though, just set his fastest lap of the entire race. And actually, he just set the fastest lap of any driver here this evening with a 19.93. So Steven Rex has something to work with here. It's just a question of if he can make it happen in these next 5 laps. 5 laps left to go here at Martinsville Speedway before we pack things on up, head on up north to the Thompson Speedway next week. But he's closing the gap. He is there. It's just a matter of either getting the bumper to the back of Sukup or hoping Sukup makes a mistake. But with how hard these drivers are pushing, I would imagine we're going to lean a little bit more towards using a bit of the bumper to get up there. 3 laps left to go as we cross the line, though. Last time by was identical lap times between Sukup and Rex, so it's close here, race fans. Definitely going to be a bit of a nail biter between these two, but Rex is just not able to get close enough to use that bumper. 2 laps left to go. And still not close enough to make the bumper work. He's actually falling back just a little bit. And the same story can be said for the battle between the 2 drivers in 3rd and 4th. White flag up in the air. Rex is down low. Still just not quite enough to make the nudge. There he is. There they're making contact. Rex backs off of it, though, not to turn his teammate, and just like that, checkered flag up in the air. Travis Sukup going to take home his 2nd win of the season here tonight. Travis Sukup looking like he should move himself back on up to the 2nd position in the championship standings, if my math is right. It's kind of a big what if on that one, but it should move him on up there. And of course, Tyler McRae, he has enough of a gap to work with here that he is still going to be holding on to the championship lead as we head out of Martinsville here tonight. But Travis Sukup got it done here this evening. Will we be getting a burnout from that number 45? Maybe not quite. Now that raises the question of, is Sukup out of fuel? Or is he just getting a little bit of a nudge from his teammate for celebratory purposes? Tyler McRae, despite leading most of the laps here this evening, brought it home back in position number 7. He just was not able to get around any of those drivers on that restart, and Sukup's going to bring it to a very sudden stop here, and he's just going to take the tow on back to his truck. So I do think Sukup might have been out of fuel there. But one way or another, Travis Sukup's going to take home the win here tonight. Let's see if we can't get him up here in the broadcast booth here this evening. We will be back in just a second with a word with your top 3 finishers here tonight. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Martinsville Speedway and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Travis, it's been a little while since we've had you up here in Victory Lane, but you got it done here tonight. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here this evening?
Not real good. I didn't mean to hit Tyler there. I got into him. Steve was coming. It was getting pretty hairy. So, other than that, it was a good time.
I mean, it's Martinsville Speedway. That's bound to happen at some point. I don't think anyone can really hold it against you there. And hey, if my math is right, which I mean, it's going to be cutting it really close here because you two are pretty close in the point standings, but that might just bump you back up into second. So that's at least a net positive coming out of this race, even if it's not exactly how you wanted to get the win.
I guess we'll take it then.
Yeah, and next week, going to be heading onto a little bit of a similar speedway. Going to be heading on over to Thompson. Is that a track you got any strong opinions about?
I kind of like Thompson. It's a pretty fun track. So it's just a hard one to pass.
Well, we'll definitely have to see how it ends up playing out because it's still anyone's game in terms of the championship. McRae does have a little bit of a gap here, but regardless, it's still fairly close here tonight. So I'm excited to see what y'all are able to do next week. But for right now, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sukup. Who you want to thank for getting you up here?
I'm gonna have to say probably the guy who I spun out. um, like I said, DBR, we've had a good time, and everybody in the league. It's a lot of fun. It really was. Um, Tyler killed me in the pits. I mean, he came in. I don't know how many far, but he was right behind me, but he came out way in front of me. So it was a good job there. And hope to do it again next week.
Good deal. Congrats on the win, and I look forward to seeing you at Thompson next week.
All right, thank you for what you do, man.
And it's looking like at the moment we are not able to reach Mr. Steven Rex, so we will give him just a second to see if he's able to get up in here. But in the meantime, back in the third position, Mr. Brian Sabelski, another podium. We're going to make it 3 in a row here tonight. How are you feeling now that everything's done here at Martinsville?
We're free. We're free. We're free from Martinsville. Yay. I'm happy. I'm happy. I guess I hold on to third. Really, at this point, the trio up there of Tyler and Travis and Steven they were just so fast tonight. I didn't have the pace I thought I would on the long run. So, being able to hold off Garrett like that when he was breathing down my neck the whole time was, I feel okay about that. But yeah, everybody raced me clean, so no complaints there. Nobody was problematic at all, and had a solid finish. I'm gonna pick up a couple points here, so hopefully we can keep rocking and rolling.
Good deal. Well, I like the enthusiasm. You are, in fact, free from Martinsville, but we're heading on into Thompson next week. I don't know if that suits your taste a whole lot better.
Yeah, well, Thompson's an interesting track. It'll be very interesting to see how everything shakes out there. Just gonna keep trying to get as many points as I can. Keep chipping away at it. I know Phoenix is coming up on the schedule too, and looking forward to that one. Always like to go to my unofficial home track. But yeah, one of the things maybe we can get a certain road course on the schedule next season. Certain road course that may have been teased today. I don't know.
Yeah, the one teased approximately 2 or 3 hours ago, by any chance?
Yes. Rhymes with Billow Bings.
Uh-huh. Well,
Yes.
I don't have any sneak peeks in the next week's schedule, so I can't help you on that one quite yet. But I can tell you we're heading to Thompson next week. We got 4 races left in the championship. You could make it happen. You never know. But for now, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who you want to thank for getting another podium here tonight?
Oh, of course, I want to thank the folks at Marconi Setup Shop, the official setup shop of eNASCAR, which is amazing and awesome, and I'm glad to have them around. Thank the folks at SM Racing, our wonderful sponsors, who are also this week and maybe into next week. I'm running a little bit of testing on some stuff for them just to kind of get them figured out, but help them figure out some stuff and give them some feedback and all that fun stuff. The little thing, little test device that I have, test unit, I guess I should say, because that's what it says on the box, is pretty good. It's very, very good. I'm enjoying having it so far. It's a nice piece of kit. So be sure to check out their website. Thanks, of course, to Jason, everyone at the ASRC for hosting. Sorry you couldn't make it this week, Jason. We missed you, bud. Especially we missed you because of me having to like do admin stuff and race and figure out what the heck is going on with iRacing as it's trying to melt down around me. Thanks to folks at Pause Your Game, Take This, St. Jude, all of them being people that I have fundraised for recently or will be fundraising for this month. So super awesome. But yeah, just everyone remember, you're great and awesome, and people love you, and someone cares about you. So take care of yourselves, and hopefully we'll see you here next week.
Good deal. Well, congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you at Thompson next week.
Yep. Catch you next week.
And finishing on back to the second position, we managed to get him up here in the broadcast booth. Mr. Steven Rex, you made it happen here tonight. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done up here in Martinsville?
Yeah, it was definitely an exciting race. I wish there wouldn't have been the contact with, I think it was like 9 to go, between the front two. That'd have been one hell of a finish if we all could have got to race it out. Either way, it was still a good finish. I got underneath Mike there at the end, and yeah, just made a little bit of contact. I was coming off hard, and I got down low, and he held his line, and I got him loose a little bit. I didn't want to wreck us both, so I backed out, and then that was it. There was not enough time left. Definitely had the fastest car on the long run for sure.
Do you reckon if that caution didn't come out, you might have had what you needed to get around Sukup and McRae?
I think so, because I reeled him in from 2 seconds back, and man, I don't know. I just had my shift points were perfect. I was downshifted into third, and then going back into fourth, coming out of the corner. So I was doing that really well. I had it nailed, and the car was just moving. It only took about 20 laps. Everybody on fresh tires were pretty even, but lap 20, 25, I was really starting to dig.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're coloring me surprised. I did not think anyone was shifting here tonight. I can tell you most of the folks outside of the top 5 weren't, so maybe there's a little secret there people can take into next time we head to Martinsville. But next week, heading on over to the Thompson Speedway, how you feel going to another one of the arguably more long and narrow tracks like this one?
You know what? I like the tight racing. I like Thompson. I like all the short tracks that we're running with the series. So I look forward to it. We'll be trying to put it up front again.
Good deal. Well, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Rex. Who you want to thank for getting up on the podium here tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all my teammates, Mike and Tyler over at DBR. I always forget, not always forget about this, but sometimes I'm tied up in some other racing that I have. And, Tyler's sending out the messages, you got to get in here 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And I jumped in last minute and was able to, get a good starting spot and run it. And, Jason, I don't know who else puts on this series, you for broadcast. And, but I definitely appreciate everybody putting all this together so we can come out and have a good time.
Good deal. Well, congratulations on the finish here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you at Thompson next week.
All right, take care. Thank you.
And just like that, here, race fans, you heard it from your top 3 finishers here tonight. Travis Sukup, Steven Rex, Brian Sabelski, your top 3 here this evening. Rounding out the rest of the field, going to be Garrett Streets, Derek Murphy, Jeremy Morrow, Tyler McRae, Brady Schreckengoss, John Sluter, Christopher Ryan, and Brandon Feeney rounding out the field here tonight. Another race where we managed to tie for the most number of drivers in a single race. And next week, we got some very interesting tracks coming up for the final couple of rounds of the season. So we might just beat that number. But for this evening, just about all we got here from up in Ridgeway, Virginia. A big thank you from everyone out here in the ASRC Oval Series. And a big thank you from our friends over at SM Racing for tuning in and supporting the league here this evening. And we all look forward to seeing you next week at the Thompson Speedway. Same day, same time, Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And for those of you who are interested in joining the league and competing, head on over to asrcracing.com or look up ASRC on the iRacing League directory. Only requirement to join is to be a clean and respectful driver. And the session's open at 9 p.m. Eastern, so if you want to compete, don't show up when the broadcast goes live. Show up before then. Make sure you actually have time to get everything situated and put on a heck of a show. But thank you all for tuning in here tonight, and we will see you next week at the Thompson Speedway. Have a good evening, race fans.